Well, yesterday, for some reason on YouTube, I had the video cut off a little bit um, early. It wasn't much, but it was still. So maybe reading two chapters at a time is too much. So I'm going to try to just read one chapter from now on and write them that way. So this is going to be chapter 13. And the story, of course, is called An Uncommon Gift. And the other 12 chapters are already up on YouTube. And so if you want to go back and get caught up, if you want, they're there. So Bobby and Diane had a great time recording their performances of the school band book on Sunday afternoon. And it was the first time that Diane had ever heard herself play her violin, ever. She was surprised that it sounded way better than fingernails on the blackboard, but something way less than what they heard at the Millers' concerts last night. Of course, she was well aware that those were symphony players, and they were playing violins that were worth well over $50,000 apiece. So the actual sound they heard last night was also partly due to great instruments, just like the Steinway B 7-foot grand piano. You want to have great sound, you have to pay. And Diane's $300 violin was just a beginning. They did enjoy their playing none the same, and would just from now on work on their tone as well as the playing of the notes on time. Everything matters when you are trying to get better. They were both hoping they had the chance to get to hear the symphony sooner practiced than later. Bobby said he would ask Mark to see if he could talk to the Millers and make it sooner. Bobby let Diane take the cassette copy of their practices home, as she said her dad had a nice stereo with a cassette recorder as well. She would ask her dad if a couple of microphones could be added at her house so she could record herself as well. That would be a great idea. She thanked Bobby and headed home, and thanking Bobby's parents on her way out the front door. Most of the kids at school were getting excited as spring break was coming in 2 weeks, so trying to keep the band concentrating was a challenge for Mr. Taylor, the band teacher, but he was doing well. The kids were responding and did not want to sound too bad at the school concert at the end of the year. Bobby went up to the band room to see Mr. Taylor before school began and see if he would have any interest in Bobby recording the third period band practice. "I had been giving some thought to that," said Mr. Taylor. "I have some extra money in our school budget, and maybe I should invest it in some kind of a recorder and some microphones like you have," he added. Bobby thought that would be a great idea, as he would not have to carry all of his gear up to school. Not an easy thing. Bobby offered to go to Mr. Taylor to Cook's Music Store sometime this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, and help him pick out some gear. Not that Bobby was an expert now, but he knew the folks at Cook's would be a big help as well. They set up a time to go on Tuesday afternoon after school if Bobby could get permission from his parents. "I will ask them tonight when I get home from my university clarinet lesson," Bobby stated. He wanted to be a help to the band. With that settled, he headed off to first period science, and the day was beginning on a good note. Bobby left his expensive buffet clarinet in his locker in the band room before he left for class and said goodbye to Mr. Taylor. For some reason that school day seemed to last forever, but Bobby did have fun in fourth period gym class as they went outside and played baseball with a 16-inch mush pounder type softball, so more kids who really didn't play could at least hit the ball. Everyone had a good time and even laughed a bit when someone tried but failed to catch a fly ball. They had a good time when the weather was nice again. Bobby had lunch right after gym, and he found Diane sitting with her friends. and he was not bashful about joining them. And the two other girls were also in the band as well, and Bobby met them last week. Diane, announced Bobby, Mr. Taylor and I are planning to go down to Cook's tomorrow after school and buy some recording gear for the school band room. If I can get permission to go, he added. He said that he had some extra money in the band fund, and it would be a good idea to be able to record the band and have the kids hear they're playing like we were doing, he added. Well, I hope that works out, said Diane, and the other girls agreed. They said it would be nice for the entire band to hear themselves play, they thought. They all finished their lunch and Diane filled their friends in on their Saturday night dinner concert at the Millers. The girls were jealous of the fun she and Bobby were having. I think for the first time, Bobby and Diane realized just how lucky they were to be able to hear such good music at the university and then get to meet all of those talented adults from the symphony. The other girls knew they would have to get their parents to take them to the next university concert. Bobby said he would find out from Mark at the university practice today when the next school concert would be, and he would tell everyone so they could make plans. They thanked him for that. They all agreed that the band third period sounded pretty good today for a Monday, but maybe they weren't the only ones who practiced over the weekend. They finished their lunches, the bell rang, and they headed out to sixth period. They all hoped the rest of the day went faster. Time would tell, and Bobby had to remember to get his clarinet out of the band room after last period before heading out to the university. He doubted he would forget that. Again, Bobby had a nice skateboard ride through the park to the university and headed over to the music building. He went upstairs and waited outside of room 305 for the other students to finish their practice. The students finished and Bobby was waiting for Mark. Instead, Dave Johnson from the radio station came and said that Mark was going to be about 30 minutes late and wondered if Bobby would like to take a tour of the university radio station. Bobby was all in on that, and they both headed out to the station, as it was on the third floor of the science building, as physics professor John Hertz was the supervisor of the station, as he had a first-class FCC license and was in charge of the operation of the transmitter and all the engineering. Bobby was going to get to meet Mr. Big at the station. As they arrived, Professor Hertz was standing just inside the door and greeted both of them. Professor Hertz, announced Dave, this is Bobby Mason, a clarinet student of Mark Malone's, and he has taken an interest in the station and started doing some home recording of his clarinet practices, Dave and I added. Well, good for you, said Professor Hertz. That is good to hear that we might have some younger folks who might be interested in working at the station in the years ahead, he added. Nice to meet you, Bobby. Have a nice tour, and I hope I get to see you up here again, he added with a big smile. Just don't let Dave electrocute you while you're here, he added with a laugh. I'll try not to do that, added Dave with a smile, knowing the professor was quite a kidder. Bobby, most of the stuff here is low voltage, so not much of a chance of that, Dave added. The professor said his goodbyes and told Bobby he was welcome up there any time and could meet the rest of the station staff to get to see how the station really worked. Bobby thought that would be great fun and said he would try and find some time to do that. Bobby said it was nice to meet him, and he and Dave were off into the station. Dave showed him the control room where all the DJs worked and showed him the small Gates audio mixing board they used to control the audio that went into the transmitter. The transmitter was in the next room, and they could see it through the glass. There was one microphone and 2 tape cart machines for commercials. There was meter readings that had to be taken every hour on the transmitter and logged onto a special sheet an initial by the person working that shift on the board. There was a huge atomic clock on the wall for precise timing of the station operation. The logs were kept in case someone from the FCC came in to do an inspection of the station, but that had yet to happen, as the station only operated on 100 watts at 88.1 megahertz on the FM dial was not a problem like some commercial stations that were thousands of watts of output. Their signal just reached around the campus for the most part. The 88.1 megahertz spot on the FM dial was reserved for educational purposes and where most of the school stations could be found. Inside the control room had two large turntables with 16-inch tone arms, and the school used Stanton 500E cartridges that could withstand the back queuing of the records that they played. The audio from each record had to start playing within 5 seconds of the turntable startup, which made it easier for the DJs to announce the next record. It was usually a half-backwards rotation of the LP or 7-inch 45 RPM disc that they played. Something nice to know about how the DJs went about their work. Once the platter to the turntable was started, the music played within the right time and at the right speed. The DJ also had to write their own commercials, as they would go into town and see if they could sell some commercial time to local businesses. 30-second spots were $5 and minute commercials were $10, so it was easy to sell and gave the station the chance to make some money. But none of the staff was paid. It would pay for repairs if needed and beverages for the DJs that were kept in the fridge. They would also read public service announcements, PSAs, provided by the U.S. government or other nonprofit agencies where the information might be important to the general public. Dave also showed Bobby the large round table outside of the control room that had chairs and 4 microphones set up for doing interviews of guests that would come in, and even students from government class or others who just wanted to have a forum to talk about new ideas and present them to the school over the radio station. The students who worked at the station could develop their interviewing and reporting skills doing that from time to time. They had 2 boys who also did the play-by-play of the football and basketball games, boys and girls, and Dave would do the remote recording of concerts at the school, like the one Bobby heard Mark play in last week, and then have it played back over the station. Dave said that he was more interested in the recording engineering side of audio than in just the radio station work. But he had a shift on Friday night as well. He liked doing interviews of students involved in special things at school and would have them come in as well. He would even do interviews of the coaches and players after a big game and talk more in depth about how the game went. Bobby was quite surprised at how much was really going on such a really small station. Dave told Bobby that with his interest in recording, he could see Bobby working there one day. Bobby thought that would be pretty cool. The tour took about 30 minutes, and Bobby thanked Dave for the tour and headed back to the music building where Mark was just beginning to walk up to room 305. He turned and saw Bobby was right behind him. "Well, did Dave give you the $5 tour of the radio station?" asked Mark. "Yes, he did," replied Bobby, "but he wouldn't take my money." They both laughed and went in and started to begin their practice.